Welcome, one and all, and welcome to what is, I'm sure, to be probably, certainly to most of you, the political version of Jack and Ori. Yeah, welcome to the Sue Gray Report. We've been expecting it to drop this week, and well, it dropped today. In fact, it dropped shortly after 11:30, I think it was today. Needs to say, I have skim read it. I have briefly flickered through it, but tonight we are really going to go. We are just going to go into it. We're going to go through. Well, we're going to try and go through the entire thing. It's about 60 pages long, so we are going to go right into all this and really get stuck in to the whole meat and potatoes of it. So, yeah, the Sue Gray Report. The big question is tonight, should have Boris Johnson resigned? Yes. If you wanted to save his political career, yes, absolutely. Boris Johnson should have resigned. Those MPs who said that they were, quote, waiting for Sue Gray to drop her report, well, it's here. The culture at Downing Street was very explicit, as we will be finding out this evening. Turned into an absolute party night atmosphere, as everyone has probably heard by now. 4 o'clock was wine o'clock. Drinks, tables, desks full of alcohol. There was wine spilt along stationery, up walls. People literally throwing up in number 10 because they had that too much to drink, and parties going on well into the night, sometimes 3, sometimes 4 in the morning, as the latest one, at least in the report, prescribes. So think of that as a TDL of what we're about to do. So if you're watching this, you've just literally had the TDL of it. Was Boris going to resign? No, I think this is just Boris Johnson. He doesn't resign. And Boris knows it. Boris knows that there is no successor. I think that seems to be what is keeping a lot of the Tories from giving him the boot. The fact that there's no successor. But you're like, it shouldn't matter. Get rid of him. Find someone else afterwards. That's what you should be doing, to be honest, guys. You had, what was it, the Scottish leader of the Conservatives? Johnson should resign after the war in Ukraine's over. The war in Ukraine shows no sign of at least stopping for the moment, and certainly not for the foreseeable future. And a lot of the stuff we were hearing tonight is that a lot of the Tory MPs have pretty much resigned themselves to losing the next general election. They know they've lost, and they know they're not going to get rid of Johnson. There's no viable alternative, and there seems to be no stomach of initiating that leadership contest to get rid of him, to start looking for that next candidate. But that's what a leadership election is all about, to help find them. But yeah, that is basically it in a nutshell. But what more can you say? What more do you want to say about it? But yeah, we'll be definitely finding about all in this this later. So anyway, before we go digging into the Sue Gray Report, welcome everyone, as always. Hello to people in chat. So who have we got in chat so far? Colin Thompson, greetings from New York. New York. Pedals, good evening to you. Cathology, good evening to you. Jennifer, thank God it's not Galloway. Yeah, thank God. Daily Blaze, good evening to you. Yep, I'm doing very well. Mike McGurk, good evening to you as well. So yeah, good evening. And like I say, do remember to hit that like and share button. Say, let's get more people into listening to the old Sue Gray Report, as they say. Like I say, it's like a really, really weird version of Jack and Ori tonight. It really is. So, let's go diving into it then, shall we? So, let's begin. So, as you said, Cabinet Office report. So, the full name of the report isn't the Sue Gray report, it's the findings of the Second Parliament Secretary's investigation into the alleged gatherings on government premises during COVID restrictions. That is essentially the full name of the report, colloquially known to be now and forever known as the Sue Gray report. Yeah, Colin. Yeah, you are right, Colin. As soon as Boris gave his apology, the Tories literally just filled and emptied out. If you've seen any pictures of Parliament this afternoon, they were just gone. I genuinely think a lot of Tories have gone home probably today thinking, well, I've lost my seat. So, but anyway, let's go diving into this. Here we go. So, findings of the Second Parliament Secretary's investigation to alleged gatherings report. Number one, on the 8th of December 2021, the Prime Minister asked the Cabinet Secretary to carry out an investigation into the allegations reporting in the media relating to gatherings at number 10 Downing Street and the Department for Education during November and December of 2020. On the 17th of December 2021, the Cabinet Secretary recused himself from the investigation as a result of allegations concerning an online quiz held by his private office in the Cabinet Office during the 17th of December 2020 in number 70 Whitehall. It was also at this point that I was asked to lead this work, because that was Sue Gray. In terms of reference for the investigation that were published on the 9th of December 2021, the primary focus of the investigation was to establish a general understanding of the nature of these gatherings, including the attendance, the setting, and of course the purpose, with the reference to the adherence to the guidance in place at the time. On the 31st of January 2021, I published an update, addended to this report, and including the terms, details of the reference, the timeline of regulations, which set out the methodology of the investigation, the 16 gatherings within its scope, and, of course, a number of limited general findings that also confirmed that the Metropolitan Police Service had decided to investigate the events of the following dates. The 20th of May, 2020, gathering in Downing Street Garden. The 18th of June, 2020, the 19th of June, 2020, 13th of November 2020, another 13th of November 2020, the 17th of December 2020, another one on the 17th of November 2020, another one on the 17th of December 2020, the 18th of December 2020, the 14th of January 2021, the 16th of April 2021, and another one again on the 16th of April 2020. So, as you can see, multiple parties happening at once together. These all flow very much into one in this case. And yeah, the scale of some of these parties, and as we're going to find out later, there was 2 leaving dues going on at separate times that merged into one. So yeah, a lot of parties to say that, if you remember all this, there were no parties going on at number 10. Remember that. Oh, this one from Katie. Hello from Morocco. Hello from Morocco. Anyway, we're continuing. So the Metropolitan Police assisted that the following the Metropolitan Police assessed that the following gatherings did not reach the threshold for criminal investigation: the 15th of May 2020, the 27th of November 2020, and the 10th of December 2020, and of course the 15th of December 2020. Those looks like, yeah, the 10th was a Christmas quiz, as was the 15th. So those, again, a lot of gatherings to say there were no, yeah, there's a lot of parties going on here. As we said just a moment ago, a lot of parties going on here to say that there were no parties. But yeah, there you go. So, outcome of Metropolitan Police investigation. So, as I said in my 31st of January update, it was not for me to make a judgment on whether criminal law had been broken. That is properly a matter for the law enforcement bodies. Further to that, on the 19th of 2020, the Metropolitan Police announced they had concluded their investigations, and they confirmed that they had made 126 referrals for the fixed penalty notices to ACRO, the Criminal Records Office, for breaches of COVID-19 regulations into the events of the following of at least 8 dates. May of 2020, the 18th of June, 19th of June, 13th of November, 17th of December, 18th of December, all those happening in 2020, 14th of January 2021, and the 16th of April 2021. They did not specify to whom or into relation to which of those fixed penalty, these FMPs, were issued, that's fixed penalty notices, just to abbreviate it, nor did they share any of that information with me. They did confirm that a total of at least 83 individuals did receive the FPNs, and some people received more than one. Not Boris Johnson, though. In order to refer for FPN, officers were required to have a reasonable belief that the individual had committed an offence under the regulations. The Prime Minister and the Chancellor each confirmed that they had received the FPN. In relation to the events on at least the 19th of June 2020, the Cabinet Secretary and the head of the Civil Service confirmed that he has not received the FPN. Now that the police investigation has concluded their inquiries, I am able to set out more in detail and in line with my terms of reference, my findings with respect to the gatherings within the scope of my investigation. So let's get into the methodology. That's your preamble to all this, shall we say. So, who got the 10k fines? No one at Downing Street, apparently. They'll basically receive 50 quid. But people got more of that. So the methodology. So this is how Sue Gray set out her report. So remember this. This is going to be interesting to find out later, because this is how she said she went and did her report. This is how she determined there were wrongdoing, etc., etc. So methodology. So my update set out the context and methodology for the investigation. I will not repeat that here other than to add some further detail into the relevant findings in this report. Number 10, in finalising this report, I have concluded to try and take advice appropriate from the Treasury Solicitor, Daniel Stills, QC, and Christopher Knight for counsel. Scope. The original scope for the Cabinet Office investigation focused on 3 gatherings, alleged to have taken place in Number 10 and, of course, the Department of Education in November and December of 2020. The terms of reference also allowed the investigation and credible allegations of other gatherings. That had led my team and I to investigate further 13 events reported to have taken place in Number 10 and the Cabinet Office during the period of the pandemic. Details of those official events emerged in a number of ways, and in some instances, information was proactively provided by individuals that we interviewed throughout the process, and people were encouraged and remained in line with terms of reference to provide any relevant information to the Cabinet Office investigation team. So one of the things that we have definitely, and we're going to get into this later, a lot of the people who received fines were the juniors. We're talking junior civil servants receive these fines. That seems to be the vast majority of people who got those fines. That's who seem to have got the vast bulk of them. No one above, no one at least in any senior positions, seems to have been fined, which I find somewhat interesting, to say the least. But it does seem to have been let the juniors, shall we say, take the fall for, as we'll get to in a bit later, some of the emails that Sue Gray puts in a report. What happens here? So, yeah, let's get into it. So I appreciate the events in question did take place some time ago in very different circumstances. I also accept that the memories may have faded and the recollections will differ. I'm very grateful to those who again sought to provide as much information as possible in what I realized may have been a very daunting experience given the public profile of this investigation. It was also unfortunate that in a case, the details of some events only became known to me and my team through the reporting in the media. This is disappointing, given that the piecemeal manner in which some of these events were brought to my attention. It is also possible that events took place which were not the subject of investigation. However, my general findings and conclusion would equally apply. So that's very interesting that a lot of people put it out in the media before they even went to see Sue Gray. So, nature investigation findings. So, as I explained in the 13th of January update, I did not seek to alter the terms of reference of the approach to the investigation when I took over from the Cabinet Secretary. My task was to establish a general understanding of the nature of the gatherings in scope. This was not intended to be an exhaustive process, nor was it in purpose to try and determine the individual wrongdoing or to try and produce a definitive line by line narrative of each event. Rather, the objective was to establish the broad facts of what took place at these gatherings, taking into account that some took place over nearly 2 years ago. Given the terms of references as well as the significant extension to the scope of the investigation, it was not possible to interview all of those who may have attended each of these events, nor was it necessary. As such, the investigation focused on speaking to those individuals who were key to understanding whether the alleged events had taken place and whether they had by their nature and purpose and how they had come to be organized. In that line of approach, which follows, is the narrative account of how these events came into be and what happened and when they took place. And as far as I've been able to establish support for these accounts, I've included, whether appropriate, the reference to factual documentary evidence, including email invitations, photographs, communications between staff, and to help understanding the nature of the purpose of the event, including preparations which may have taken place. There are, of course, differences in the level and detail in each of these narratives. The account of this evidence of my team gathered by variety and by the event, and in some cases, we were able to obtain accounts from multiple attendees as well as documented material, including email communications, entry and exit logs, and photographs. Some of the other events that taken place were less documentary evidence, and we are only able to speak to a limited number of individuals. This was most notably the case for those events that we started investigating later in the process. Essentially, at the point at which the Metropolitan Police said that they would be investigating some of those events, this is necessarily limited, and we have been able to establish about these gatherings as well, as it would not have been appropriate to continue our investigation once the police investigation had commenced. The Metropolitan Police investigation had primacy. I have taken the view that it would not be necessary or appropriate or proportionate to undertake any further investigative work following the conclusion of the work of the Metropolitan Police. So that's fine. I can understand that. Sue Gray giving way to police. I'm fine with that. So 17. So, at the request, I provided the Metropolitan Police with material compiled in the course of my investigation relevant to the dates that they were investigating. However, to be clear, the police investigation was entirely separate from the process I conducted. 18. This brings me to the question of names. This has not been easy. And I think I sort of agree, because you've got to think, if you get named in this report, your career is all but over. And some of the people that have come forward and come out with their information about the Sue Gray report, or have come forward like with information, or as we saw just yesterday, we had some insiders come out and say how annoyed they were that Boris Johnson had only received one fine, and that they were, they knew what happened. He was there. He was part of all this stuff. He knew what was going on, and he did nothing to stop it. So, I am really sympathetic to Sue Gray when she says she's not going to name some of these attendees, and I think that's fine. So, it is well-established convention that the names of senior civil servants are not routinely withheld in government disclosures. I have broadly followed this convention here, but given the new unique circumstances of this investigation, I have decided that naming should only be for the most high-ranking of individuals who knew and or about or attended an event, as well as those senior civil servants or special advisors who were significant to the organization of such gatherings, given their wider responsibility for the leadership and the cultures of the department. Subject to this, to some limited expressions based on personal circumstances, I have determined that the public interest in reporting adequately on these events while going to the scope of my investigation in accordance with the terms of references justifies the naming of senior individuals involved in this limited extent. It does not follow that any of those who I've referred to in this report, named or otherwise, have received a FPN, or that any inference or assumption can be made about the outcome of the police investigation at any individual case. As I have set out above, I have been informed by the Metropolitan Police of these matters. My team and I have been provided with photographs. Some of these events that have taken place, some official and others taken on personal devices. I've even considered whether any of these should be published. So that's interesting because we've known for quite a while Boris Johnson actually has a personal document, not a personal document, a personal photographer in number 10 Downing Street. He was documenting like cabinet meetings and stuff going on in number 10. So we've had that evidence has been there for quite a while. From I think this is where some of them have certainly come from from that photographer, especially the official ones, and of course we've had the unofficial ones that have come from again civil servant devices. Anyway, she continues. I have considered whether any of these should actually be published, and I concluded that they are official photographs should be taken within the scope for disclosure only when they are particularly pertinent into helping understand the nature and purpose of a gathering. I have also attached these to the report. I have limited identification of individuals in the photographs to ministers and to the cabinet secretary. So, the final one before we get to the more context. The Cabinet Office investigation has acclimated a body of material in the course of this work, the interviews, photographs, and the documents, and the vast majority of which is naturally a direct use of the narratives below. I've asked that the Cabinet Office Knowledge and Information Team to be the custodian of this material, together with my own records relating to this work for the preservation and the official record. So, context. The context in which I've set out my update remains key to this report. The findings and the completeness, I repeated that summary here. The outbreak and spread of SARS-CoV-19 represented a global public health crisis without parallel in living memory. In the United Kingdom, it had a seismic impact on everyday life of the country. In response to help control the spread of the virus and to keep the most vulnerable safe, the UK government put in place far-reaching restrictions on citizens and had a direct and material impact on their lives, livelihoods, and liberties. From the 26th of March 2020, the law in England required everyone to remain in their homes unless certain very limited exceptions applied. Restrictions were temporary to be eased over the summer of 2020 until almost remaining national regulations were removed on the 4th of July 2020. Restrictions were then reintroduced in graduations in the autumn, culminating in the UK government announcing from the 5th of November 2020 restrictions on the movements and gatherings in England, essentially requiring people to stay at home. The restrictions on gatherings of 2 or more people applied in London through December of 2020. And the first months of 2021, indoor mixing included of 2 or more households was not permitted again until the 17th of May 2021. In line with those rules, and the vast majority of staff in government departments worked from home, the civil service, along with the rest of the public sector, went to great lengths to try and reconfigure the professional and delivery of public services for support of businesses almost overnight. Many private sector businesses on the organisations, both large and small, all over the UK, were also working hard to deal with the pandemic, both in terms of managing their businesses, their livelihoods, and all those of their employees, as well as providing vital support to the national effort and to respond to the virus. A small number of government officials and, of course, special advisors, because of the nature of their projects and their jobs directly supporting the Prime Minister and others, continued to attend their offices as a purpose of work as permitted by an exemption under these regulations. In particular, number 10 Downing Street and the Cabinet Office were at the centre of the government's response to the pandemic. The tight-knit groups of officials and advisors worked long hours under very difficult conditions in buildings that could not be easily adapted to secure COVID workspaces. Number 10 Downing Street and the Cabinet Office of number 70 Whitehall are closely interconnected, with staff moving regularly between the two buildings as part of their daily work. The Prime Minister's flat and, of course, the Downing Street garden are in close proximity to the offices and have several dual office and private purposes. Those challenges, however, will also apply to key frontline workers across the country who are working under equally, if not more, demanding positions, often putting their own health and own health at risk. What is important to remember is the stringency of the public health regulations enforced in England over the relevant periods, and that criminal sanctions were indeed applied to found to many to be in breach of them. The hardship under which citizens across the country worked, lived, and sadly even died were well observed by the government regulations and guidance rigorously, and are often known only too well. Every citizen has been impacted by the pandemic, and everyone has made personal sacrifices, some of the most profound having been able to be with their loved ones in the last moments for care, for vulnerability, for family and friends. Oh, take a break there. But anyway, going through it. We're going through it. Hacking our way through it. Slowly but surely, we're getting through it. So, factual findings of the events. This is where we start to see, and are going to start to see, some emails appear. And I think these emails and these invites that we are about to see are very, very telling of the culture that was going on in Downing Street. And this is something that has been pushed by Boris. We know this has changed. Everyone that has been come out, one of the big things they've said is this wasn't normal until Boris came in. It is he who encouraged this party atmosphere. So, factual findings of the events. For each event, I have summarized the particularly relevant passages and made applicable regulations to the government guidance. As explained in my update report, it is not my role to be judge on whether or not the criminal law had been broken. My focus has been on establishing the nature and the purpose of these events, and whoever those events were appropriate in the light of the government's own guidance. Where I set out the terms and regulations, this is because they also form part of the guidance. Other aspects of the guidance, particularly in relation to the social distancing, were in addition to the terms of the regulations. The numerical references attributed to the roles are distinct for each event. On the evidence collected, I have made the following things. So, 15th of May 2020, a photograph showing a number of groups in the garden of number 10 Downing Street. We all remember that, of course. Extracts of regulation and guidance. On the 26th of March 2020, restrictions on leaving one's home without reasonable excuse were first announced on the 23rd of March, and they came into legal effect in England. Very limited justifications to permit travel work were here, if not reasonably possible to work from home. Permitted in a gathering of more than 2 persons was public and was prohibited except the gathering was essential for work purposes. On the 13th of May 2020, some restrictions were relaxed to allow meetings outdoors for exercise or even recreation with one person from another household. Guidance encouraged those who could not work from home to go back to work. At work, social distancing guidance is applied with a workspace requirement to at least keep 2 meters of social distancing whenever possible, including while arriving and departing from work. While in work and when traveling between sites, leaving or being outside one's home without reasonable excuse continued to be prohibited. The event. On the 15th of May 2020, in the early evening, a number of people gathered in the number 10 garden. Oh yeah, by the way, we're starting to get into the... We've had the preamble. This is where we start to see some of the stuff going in now to it. So the individuals were divided up into groups of varying sizes, and some standing on the grass. Two other groups were seated at tables on the terrace. The photographs of these groups were subsequently published in the Guardian newspaper on the 19th of December 2021. As explained by those interviewed as part of the investigation, this gathering was actually a number of separate meetings. The largest group was pictured was made up of the Secretary of State for Health and Social Care, and number 10 and DHS officials had special advisors who were convened in and around at 6 o'clock following a press conference which had just taken place in Downing Street. Wine is visible on the table, and some individuals drank alcohol. Two other number 10 officials pictured separately on the grass. Both groups were discussed during the press conference. The Secretary of State left at approximately 1825. At the table on the terrace is the Prime Minister, Martin Reynolds, his principal private secretary, and of course Dominic Cummings, his senior advisor. They're having a continually lengthy meeting that started in the Prime Minister's office before moving to the garden at around 1800. The Prime Minister then brought cheese and wine from his flat. The outdoor party of the meeting lasted for about 40 minutes to an hour, where they were briefly joined by the Prime Minister's wife, during which time the photograph was taken. Martin Reynolds summarily returned to the office to continue working. The Prime Minister remained in the garden till around 1920. There was again a further group of 4 individuals sitting at the table on the terrace. It has not been possible to identify these individuals, but there is no reason to suggest that there was anything other than a further work meeting. So that was the infamous garden time, shall we say, which we may remember. So this is of the May 2020 gathering in a garden for the number 10 Downing Street staff, from the number 10 staff. Extracts, the regulations and guidance. That's exactly what we've been through. Summary. On the May the 20th, there were some gatherings in the number 10 garden. The investigation was told that the event for these purposes was for boosting staff morale following a very challenging period for staff. The invitation for this event was made initially to the number 10 staff and was extended to then to other individuals and team in the Cabinet Office. It was then an event planned in some advance by some officials and attended by a significant number of people. Some concerns were expressed whether it was appropriate to hold the event. And that's something else which gets mentioned. There were people in number 10 saying this gathering is not appropriate. We shouldn't really be doing this, guys. Let's not do this. So there were people in number 10 telling the senior staff who were involved in certainly planning some of these events, and almost certainly we'll possibly see maybe the Prime Minister did see some of this. So the talking point that the Conservatives love to trot out about Partygate is, oh, the Prime Minister received some bad advice. The Prime Minister also seemed to get advice that these gatherings were not on. One in particular we'll get to later on, where we get to see, I think it's, was it Martin Reynolds, his chief secretary? Let me just get the name. Yes, Martin Reynolds will later go on to say in this document, if we get to it, that, oh, we've gotten away with it. Mainly these parties. So, preparations. On the 13th of May 2020, at 14:53, a number 10 official number 1, sent an email to the number 10 private secretary email group and to a special advisor. It read, "Hi all. It's meant to be nice weather next week. Shall we try to do a socially distanced drinks in the garden on Wednesday or Thursday? Number 10 official number 2. Let's chat about arranging it. We can open it up to anyone else who's in the house on that day." On May the 14th, 2020, at 13:13, at number 10 official number 2 contacted the internal events team to book the garden for the following week, stating that number 10 official number 1 and number 10 official number 2 will go out and get the booze. A member of the internal events team replied on the 15th of 2020 and said, "Sounds like a lot of fun. That's fine. Just a reminder, about the press conference, so just be courteous with the sound from about 4 to 6 p.m. On the 18th of May 2020, official number 10 official number 2 wrote to number 10 facilities management saying, could you please pop out a couple of tables for us to host these drinks in the garden on Wednesday evening from around 5 to 7. It is for the private office and then whoever else is in the house on the day. On May the 2020th at 11:43, this scheduler was sent by an email on behalf of Martin Reynolds and the Prime Minister's private principal secretary, and to a number of individuals in the private office and to a number of special advisors in number 10. The email reads like this. Again, you have the who to who it was sending, to who it was going to. So, the following scheduler to number 10 official number 2 sent an email at 12:46 to the office of the Cabinet Secretary saying, we are having some socially distanced drinks in the garden later and would like to invite whoever is in your office. They start at 6, and would you be able to pass on the message to those in today, please? Strictly your office, though. We don't want to end up with lots of people. A member of staff in the Cabinet Secretary office replied, I have let those in the office know. I think they are in for today. Number 10 official number 2 responded, great. Could you also suggest that they bring their own booze? Again, so that's the infamous get your own booze email. This is it. This is it. This is the infamous bring your own booze email that we've all heard so much about. Anyway, it continues. Not sure we will have enough, but hopefully they aren't that many people in the building. As a follow-up to the scheduler draft email sending out the invitation to the gathering on the 20th of May 2020, as was sent by our number 10 official number 2 at 13:08, Martin Reynolds for approval and then copied to number 10 official number 1, Martin Reynolds replied, that is great, please issue. Number 10 official number 1 sent the email saying, looks good. I think sending it to relevant teams, every email goes very wide, projection team, etc. Email invitation was subsequently issued on behalf of Martin Reynolds at 13:44 with a further copy of the scheduler. The email said this. Hi all. After what has been an incredibly busy period, pardon me, we thought it would be nice to make the most of this lovely weather and have some socially distanced drinks in the garden this evening. Please join us from about 6. Bring your own booze, Martin. So that is the email, the bring your own booze email. The email invitation was sent to a number of group distribution lists, as well as the individuals comprising a number of total of 200 staff across number 10 Downing Street. The invitation was also sent to special advisors in the Chancellor's office and a member of staff in the number 10 COVID-19 coordination unit. Martin Reynolds also sent a separate email invitation to other senior officials. Some of those who received the original invitation, as well as those whom it was forwarded to, accepted on the scheduler itself or otherwise emailed to indicate that they would be there. Number 10 special advisor also forwarded the email at around 13:56 to number 10 official involved in the COVID press conference, which was also taking place that day, saying, in case you and others in office today want to join after the presser, I will flag separately to Martin that this will be around the same time speakers and cameras are leaving after the press conference, so be mindful of that. So interesting. So they knew what was going on, and they were definitely in a mind to try and cover this up. You know, be careful of all the cameras going around at that time. You know, we don't want to get caught. Oh, Cathlo G, thank you very much. Is Johnson still PM? Did he lie to Parliament on multiple occasions? Okay to do a shake-up instead of resigning. Possibly. He's still the PM for the moment. As we said at the beginning, there's no clear successor, and I think many Tory MPs want a clear successor. They aren't interested in that otherwise. It's very likely there will be, as we said before, a cabinet reshuffle. And as we've heard rumours before, Rishi Sunak could very much be on the, shall we say, the shuffle table. But since we're having a wee break there, thanks to Catholic G for that super chat, as always. Please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button while you are here. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page. And of course, you can buy me coffee as well at the link down below as well, where you can, well, buy me coffee, as always. Thank you to everyone who does help support the channel that way. Right. Where were we? Yes. The number 10 official to whom the email was sent replied saying, "Thank you. We'll share with the team here," and subsequently forward the invitation to all the members of the number 10 events and visiting, stating, FYI, and if of interest, number 10 special advisor will flag with Martin that the presser will be concluding around this time. Following that email, number 10 special advisor then sent a message to Martin Reynolds by WhatsApp at 14:08, stating this: "Drinks this eve is a lovely idea, so I've shared with the E&V team who are in the office, just to flag that the press conference will probably be finishing around that time, so helpful if people can be mindful of that as speakers and cameras are leaving, not walking around and waving bottles of wine, etc." Martin Reynolds replied, "Will do my best." So again, they knew what they were doing if they got caught with these photos of them doing this. They knew there was going to be a furore around this, and rightly so. So a number 10 director declined the invitation and told the investigation that they had raised earlier with Martin Reynolds or his office that this was not a good idea. So there were people in number 10 advising against this. And again, the Tory line has been, oh, it was just, he was just getting some bad advice. But there were people, this is not going to be the first time, by the way, that we see this, of someone saying, this isn't a good idea, we probably shouldn't be doing this. So, Lee Kane, the then number 10 Director of Communications, a special advisor, also received the invitation. In response, he emailed Martin Reynolds, number 10 official number 1, and Dominic Cummings at 14:35 on the 20th of May 2020, stating, "I'm sure it will be fine, and I applaud the gesture, but a 200-odd person invitation for drinks in the garden of number 10, somewhat of a comms risk in the current environment." Again, senior official, knowing that this was going to be a problem, and Lee Kane, we know, had Boris Johnson's ear. Lee Kane says that he subsequently again spoke to Martin Reynolds and advised him that the event should be cancelled. Martin Reynolds does not recall any such conversation. In addition, Dominic Cummings has also said that he too raised concerns in writing, and we have not found any documentary evidence of this. So, the event itself began shortly before 1800 on the 20th of May 2020, and it has been difficult to ascertain exact numbers in attendance, but it is likely that there were approximately 30 to 40 people in the garden. The Prime Minister attended at approximately 1800 for around 30 minutes to thank staff before returning to his office with Martin Reynolds for the meeting at 1830. This meeting lasted for about 30 minutes, after which Martin Reynolds returned to the garden for an unknown period. The Prime Minister did not return to the garden. Lee Kane then informed the investigation that he attended the event for a very brief period to ascertain who was present in the garden. A number 10 official also informed the investigation that they had not been out in the garden briefly at approximately 1800, but had also noticed a small number of individuals gathered. The number 10 official spoke to another colleague who then informed them that they were attending for the drinks, and on hearing this, the number 10 official left. The majority of people who attended the event were present early on the evening, or with a number of individuals leaving Downing Street between 2200 and 2300. Drinks and pizza were provided and then paid for by staff. On the following day, May the 21st, 2020, the number 10 special advisor emailed Martin Reynolds saying this: "Hi, Martin. Thank you so much for organising these drinks and providing the wine. A very kind thing to do. I know everyone really appreciated it." Martin Reynolds replied, Thanks. It was a lot of fun. Nice to chat with everyone. This event was also referenced in subsequent WhatsApp messages on an unknown date from Martin Reynolds to a special advisor. With this, best of luck. A complete non-story, but better than focusing on our drinks, which we seem to have got away with. So they knew. This is one of the things that we needs going in on this, that they knew what was going on. They knew full well what they were doing. They knew full well what they were doing was wrong. As you can see by Martin Reynolds, oh, that's a complete non-story, but we got away with ours. So now we move on to another one. 18th of June 2020, gathering in the Cabinet Office, number 70 Whitehall, on the departure of a number 10 official. Again, goes through what the regulations were at the time. So, summary. On the 18th of June 2020, gathering took place in number 10 at the Cabinet Office, number 70 Whitehall, to mark the departure of a number 10 official, number 10 official number 1. The first part of the event took place in number 10 Cabinet Room, involving a formal leaving speeches and some alcohol, which lasted approximately for up to an hour. The second place took it number 7 of 70 with the Cabinet Secretary rooms with alcohol, food, and music. Preparations. On the 11th of June 2020, an email invitation was sent out at 1812 by number 10 official number 1 to the private secretaries in number 10, inviting them to an event to mark their departure. The email was entitled Number 10 Official 1 Leaving Drinks. These were scheduled to take place on the 18th of June from 6 till 9. And the location was to be confirmed. At 1921, the number 10 official number 1 sent an identical invocation to a number of other individuals in number 10, including senior officials, special advisors, what was called number 10 official number 1 leaving drinks. A number of individuals accepted the invitation. There was also some internal discussion about the event between Martin Reynolds, the private principal secretary to the Prime Minister, and Lee Kane to the number 10 director. Certainly of communications. And on 12th of June, there was this exchange on WhatsApp messages between the two, which read, Martin Reynolds, number 10 official number 1's leaving drinks next week. Can we discuss handling? Lee Kane, yes, not sure how we do it, but we want to do something. Martin Reynolds, yes, it's safer to do a larger event indoors, but with some people carrying on outside afterwards. Lee Kane, I'm not sure. It all works. I'm not sure it works at all, to be honest, which would be a shame. I don't see how we can have some kind of party, though. Martin Reynolds. So you're saying nothing for, quote, number 10 official number 1. I think it's your decision, my friend, not mine. But obviously comes with rather substantial comms risks. So senior, again, I just want to put this in context. Senior officials knew what was going on was wrong. And this is, again, multiple times that come up through this of officials knew what they were doing, knew what we're planning were wrong, but at no point they don't say, oh no, we probably shouldn't do this. Oh, but if it's discovered, it's a serious comms risk. Just goes to show you that what was really going on in Downing Street at this time. It's it's crazy, to be honest. So on the 17th of June 2020, there were email exchanges between number 10 official number 1 and number 10 official and number 10 official number 2. Subject matter, my leaving, regarding logistics of the event. Number 10 official number 1 emailed number 10 official number 2 and another number 10 official number 3, stating, again, this is when you don't have people's named. So I'm just going to say, if that happens now, I'm just going to say no number 10 official. I'm just going to call them number 1, number 2, etc. Just to be easier. So anyway, to the email. Hi, it would be nice to do the speech a bit early tomorrow or Friday with a Zoom option. Plus, I can invite a wider number 10 audience, i.e. questions, R&I, speech writers, DPs, PU, press media, sports, SPADs, etc., COVID law, political team, etc. Number 2 replied, stating, hi, Martin Reynolds and quote Stuart Glasgow would like to do speeches tomorrow. Where we have your drinks, where we have your drinks, which aren't drinks. What time are we planning on the drinks? I think we should do speeches in the cabinet room via Zoom after 6:30 when the PM has gone and Dom's evening meetings has finished. We shall still, who can I invite? I will get the Zoom details at some point tomorrow. Number one replied, well, if you're doing it in the cabinet room with a gap to then the actual drinks, I think we can more explicitly call number one goodbye or leaving speeches or something. Number two replied, 6:30, okay for this. Maybe we could squeeze it in at 17:30, but might be difficult for room. Zoom details below. And again, Zoom detail meetings. Number one said that ahead of the event taking place, they recall seeking prior permission from senior officials using the cabinet secretary rooms for their own drinks following speeches in the cabinet room. So, first part of the event. Ken, part one. On the 18th of June 2020, over 25 people gathered for the first time, a formal part of the leaving event, writing speeches which took place in the cabinet room, including the number 10 official, Dominic Cummings and Simon Case, and the permanent secretary for COVID and pandemic response in number 10. It began at approximately 1830 to 1900 and finished before 1940. Not all those who attended in person stayed for the entire of this period. Others dialed into the event virtually via Zoom. Alcohol was available, and Stuart Glasgow, Deputy Principal Private Secretary to the Prime Minister, gave a speech. Second part of the event. The second phase of the event took place around 1940 in the waiting room area outside the Cabinet Secretary's private office, number 17 Whitehall, and not all attendees from the first part attended the second. At around 1940, the conclusion of this event in the Cabinet Office room between the number of staff moving through to number 10 to number 17 Whitehall used the link corridor between the two buildings. These individuals went into the Cabinet Secretary's waiting room. There was an exchange of messages on the number 10 private official WhatsApp group, which read, "Where is everyone? The pizzas are here. We're moving to the cab office, CabSec office. We're in outer office CabSec with pizza." The link to the door log shows that a number of officials from the number 10 private office went through the secure door link, between 1951 and 2016, including Martin Reynolds and Stuart Glasgow. They joined other members of the private office, including number 10 official 1, including in the waiting room. Some brought pizza and prosecco, and yet there were others followed by others to the next extent that lasted a couple of hours. Helen McNamara, the Deputy Chief Cabinet Secretary, attended in part of the evening and provided a karaoke machine, which was set up in an adjoining office to the waiting room. So this is the infamous karaoke party that happened. Oh, thank you very much, Jimmy Lee. Thank you very much for your support there. Will there be a political guillotining of staff and government officials? Causing over 200 resignations is a massacre for government staffs. Will the fines go the Met way or to the Treasury? How about the indoor parties? Difficult to say. Honestly, it's really difficult to say. Someone's going to be punished. I doubt he's going to let anyone get shall we say, get away with this. We'll have to see. Like I say, I'm surprised heads haven't rolled already, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see some lower level officials roll. In fact, what you've said there, what will be funny, a mass resignation in protest against Boris Johnson. That will be quite funny to happen. Could that happen? Not likely, to be honest, but it would be funny certainly to see that happen. So this is the karaoke party. So the Cabinet Secretary, Sir Mark Sidwell, then returned from a meeting and noted that there were individuals in his waiting room. He stayed for a short time before leaving for another meeting. He gave permission for the use of his office for a short time. The event lasted for a number of hours, and there was excessive alcohol consumption by some individuals. One individual was sick, and there was a minor altercation between two other individuals. Oh, so This is obviously, as you've heard, some were sick. Glad someone remembers, so someone was not only sick in probably an important, very important waiting area, but also we then had a fight broke out, an alcoholic-induced fight between two individuals. Yeah. This is why you don't drink at work, folks. You leave this stuff to other places. But anyway, there you go. Yes, the event then broke into stages with a few members of staff leaving at around 2100 hours. The last staff member who stayed to tidy up leaving at 3 o'clock in the morning. So that was one event. Next event, 19th of June 2020, gathering in the Cabinet Room, number 10 Downing Street, on the Prime Minister's birthday. So again, this is the infamous Prime Minister's birthday. So, summary. On the 19th of June of 2020, a number of individuals gathered in the Cabinet Room in number 10 Downing Street to wish the Prime Minister a happy birthday. Food, alcohol, and soft drinks were provided and have been organised in advance of that morning. The event lasted for around 20 to 30 minutes. Preparations. On the morning of the 19th of June, Cleo Watson, number 10 special advisor, who had informed the investigation that she had been asked to organise the event, had an exchange of the WhatsApp messages with then Martin Reynolds, the principal private secretary to the Prime Minister. The message were as follows. Cleo, hi, PM birthday today. We've organised some sandwiches and cake for around 1 PM in the Cabinet Room. If anyone from your team would like to pop in and wish him a happy birthday. Cleo, we have sent this to policy, press, and EV heads. Do you mind letting SV know? Martin Reynolds will do. So, again, you can see clear the people in charge, the upper management, shall we say, fully known and involved in going on, and advising this. And like I say, the next person up from them is the Prime Minister. This is his office. So the idea that Johnson did not know what was going on is ridiculous. So Martin Reynolds then subsequently sent an email at 9:34 to a number of number 10 staff, including to the number 10 permanent secretary for COVID and the pandemic response, Simon Case, and number 10 private secretaries saying, quote, for the PM's birthday today, we're having sandwiches and cake in the Cabinet Room. So do come along and wish the PM happy birthday. We do not know which individuals saw this email, the event. The Prime Minister was not aware of this event in advance, and it did not form part of his official birthday diary for the day. He returned from an external visit to number 10 Downing Street at approximately 14:20, where he was taken to the Cabinet Room, which had been set up with sandwiches, snacks, drinks, and cans of beer. Those attending number 10 of the officials and Mr. Johnson, the Permanent Secretary for COVID and, of course, Panic Response, Simon Case, attended with a long, short period, having arrived early for the meeting, which was due to take place in the Cabinet Room. The Chancellor was also there very briefly, also having arrived early for the same meeting. He had no advance knowledge of what's about to be planned. The event lasted between 14:23 to 14:25, throughout which the Prime Minister was present. Those attending consumed food and drinks, and some drank alcohol, and there were photographs of the event. So that was that event. So on to the 30th of November 2020. Again, on to the summary. On the 13th of November 2020, it was publicly announced that two of the Prime Minister's most senior advisors, Dominic Cummings and Lee Kane, would be leaving government. There was a leaving speech and drinks for number 10 for Lee Kane that day, which the Prime Minister then attended. Of course, not for Dominic Cummings, because if you remember, he'd been fired. So, the event. A number of press officials and the staff made media special advisors gathered in the press office area, number 10, to mark the departure of Lee Kane, and the number 10 of Director of Communications. The investigation was informed that this was not pre-planned. It did occur at the time of around what was called Wine Time Friday would normally be taking place. The Prime Minister attended on this day on his way to Downing Street flat, having left his office in 1917, and was up to the preface area to be joined by the gathering and made leaving speeches for Lee Kane. The wine had been provided, with those attending, including the Prime Minister, were drinking alcohol. There are a number of photographs of this event. So, again, this is the big one. Wine Time Friday. Just where did this come from? Who came up with this? What happened to this, you know? It goes beyond belief that we have an event in number 10 Downing Street called Wine Time Friday. I would not expect there to be such an event going on essentially in the halls of power. And what is essentially probably the most important office in the UK. So, the event. Following the departure, of course, of Dominic Cummings and Lee Kane, there was a meeting held in number 10 flat sometime after, to at least 1800, to discuss the handling of their departure. 5 special advisors attended. The Prime Minister then joined them at about 2000 hours. Food, alcohol were available. The discussion carried on later into the evening, where attendees were leaving at various points. The information collected on this gathering is very limited, as the process of obtaining evidence had only just been commenced when the Metropolitan Police announced their own investigations, and of course included events on the 13th of November 2020. At this point, I stopped my investigation, given the time needed to avoid any prejudice to the police investigation. Following the Metropolitan Police announcement on the 19th of May 2022, I considered whether or not to conduct any further investigation into the event, but concluded it was not appropriate or proportionate to do so. So, I get it. Get why she didn't pursue some of the investigations. She felt that she might prejudice the police investigation. That's fine. You can disagree, but you know, I think Sue Gray, being in the situation that she was, I can't blame her for being cautious. I really can't blame her for being cautious about it. So on to the next one. The 27th of November 2020, gathering number 10 Downing Street to departure special advisor. So the summary. On the 27th of November 2020, a number of people gathered in the 10 press office to say goodbye to the special advisor, who was then leaving government. Officials, including senior officials and special advisors, were present. The Prime Minister attended and gave a short leaving speech. The event. Number 10 special advisor left government, having said goodbye to a number of people at their desks during the day, and decided to visit number 10 press office to say goodbye to the staff who worked there. This took place approximately at 1800 on a Friday evening. It appears to have been an impromptu gathering. An expression of messages took place between number 10 special advisor and number 10 special advisor. Number 10 official. At 1746, number 10 special advisor asked, quote, were, quote, sick, will you be in 20 minutes? At 1788, the special advisor replied, press room. And at 1800, sent a further message to the number 10 official saying, yes, will you PS folks know? Number 10 official replied at 1806, stating, yes. There was also further messaging saying, we are coming now. There were approximately 15 to 20 people in attendance, some of whom were drinking alcohol, as well as some people from the press office. A number of senior officials, private officers, staff, and special advisors attended the event. The Prime Minister had finished his meeting at 1819 and then attended the press office to say goodbye. He then remained for a short time to say a few words and thanks and farewell before returning to his office for his next meeting, which was scheduled for 1845. Special advisor left the building at 1854. And of course, I think that was when the press secretary, if you remember, when there was all that brouhaha about her, I think that's her particular meeting that they were referring to. I can't be 100% sure, but I think it was. Thank you very much, Jimmy Lee. Was the wine from the UK or the EU countries? If it was EU wine, so much for Brexit superiority. Very true. So this one, 10th of December 2020, gathering Department of Education ahead of the Christmas break. So on to the summary. On the 10th of December 2020, gathering took place in the Department of Education. Secretary of State for Education wanted to thank staff for the hard work ahead of the Christmas break. Senior officials and special advisors were attended at the event, and there was food and alcohol available, lasted for about an hour. Preparations. In the December of 2020, the planning began. The Department of Education for an event to thank members of staff who had been working in the office during the pandemic. This was discussed between senior officials in the department and the Secretary of State, who asked members of his private secretary office to make the arrangements. Initially, the intention was to hold the event in the private office working area, but officials subsequently decided to move the event to the department's canteen on the basis that it is well-ventilated space and would easier permit social distancing. On the 7th of December, at 15:52, an email was sent out by the Secretary of State private office from the Department of Education, inviting approximately over 50 members of staff, including the private office officials, department officials, and special advisors, to socially distanced festive drinks, with it saying this: "Hi all. We're planning on having some socially distanced festive drinks in the canteen on Thursday. It would be great if you could join us. This is open to the private office staff and members if they are around. For those working at home, there are plans for the Christmas divisional where people will be able to dial in and have a virtual festive gathering." The event. Approximately 20 to 30 staff gathered in the canteen around 1700. And on the 10th of December, staff had been invited to bring their own refreshments, including a suggestion that the invitation for those joining should bring their own bottle. Again, that comes up again and again, time and again. Quite kind of weird. At the end of the event, there was wine, some of which went along with mince pies and was provided by the Secretary of State and his private office. Well, at least, we know where some of our tax money went. The Secretary of State, again, thanked his staff for the event, leaving shortly afterwards to travel back to his constituency. Some people remained in the canteen for a short period. The event lasted around 60 minutes. So, on to the next one. The 15th of December 2020, gathering number 10 Downing Street for an online Christmas quiz. Summary. On the 5th of December 2020, a virtual quiz took place with number 10 staff. This was attended by number 10 staff who were present in Downing Street and number 70 Whitehall by some of those who joined from home. Alcohol and food was available in Downing Street and at number 70 Whitehall, supplied and paid for by staff attending. The quiz and prize giving lasted approximately 3.5 hours. On the 27th of November, that's a long quiz, by the way. 3.5 hours for a quiz. It's a long one. On the 27th of November, at 13:50, an email invitation was sent out by the number 10 people and wellbeing group to all number 10 in staff, inviting them to the virtual Christmas quiz. The email read this: "As we are not able to gather this year for a Christmas party, the people and wellbeing group have arranged a Christmas quiz on Thursday, the 15th of November, from 6 till 8:30. Dress up for the festival, for the festive season, and get your cameras on. Further details will follow shortly. If you would like get involved, please email the PGW box." On the 11th of December, further email was sent by the PGW again, asking all number 10 staff, and again to those joining these instructions, to around the running order of the quiz and needed to following social distancing guidance. Participants were then organised in 6 teams and then were individually and virtually joined in one of 3 ways: 1 from home, 2 from their desk in number 10 Downing Street, and 3 from meeting rooms in number 10 on number 70 Whitehall. This is where some number 10 staffs were based. The email included the following: "The quiz will take place on Tuesday the 15th at 1800 till 2000. We need to be mindful of hands, face, space." So again, they were fully aware of the rules and regulations around some of these stuff. The expectation was that this was a virtual quiz. Please do not come into the office on Thursday for the quiz if you are not due to be working from the office. For those who are working from number 10 and planning to stay in the office for the quiz, please ensure that you are following social distancing rules already set out for number 10 teams. And the office should ensure that they are arranging themselves behind the perplex screens, and all staff should be required to leave the office after the quiz has ended. And of course, number 10 official will be presenting the main quiz via MS Teams and from study. You can then, as you need to ensure to arrange your Zoom call or other method, can you discuss answers with your team. The invitation email includes details of the proposed team's running order. It's scheduled to start at 1800 and end at 2030, followed by the rules and prizes. Between 2030 and 2045, apart from 10 of those present, the officials were scheduled again between 2045 and 2021. The event. On the 15th of December, the quiz launched and began at around 1800. Approximately between 220 to 250 staff joined, some from home and others based in the rooms across number 10 Downing Street. At least 18 members of staff from number 10 joined the large room in number 70 Whitehall. The Prime Minister then joined the quiz at approximately 1950 to read out the questions for one of the rounds. This had been agreed in principle and in advance was confirmed on the day. It was not unusual. He was frequently called upon by his office to attend staff events. So that's interesting. This was not unusual. He was frequently called upon by his office to attend staff events. So we know what happened. We know what he was doing, what was going on. You know, oh yeah, I didn't know there was a party on. We've got it right here in the Sue Gray report. He was invited to these things all the time. He took part in them. He knew what was going on. Where were we? He remained at the event for 12 minutes before returning to his office. There are again published photographs of his participation in this event. Again, that was probably from the official number 10 photographer. Food and alcohol was available during the quiz, which was purchased by individuals on behalf of their teams. Some teams in the office gathered close around and around laptop screens. Some folk drank alcohol, and number 10 office sent a message on the number 10 internal systems referring to, quote, drunkenness and advising staff to leave number 10 via the back exits. So this has very deep implications because these Wine Time Fridays, they seem to know, or at least were getting the message, that people were getting quite drunk. They seem to know and recognize this fact that they were getting quite drunk to a point where they were saying, yeah, can you make sure if you're drunk, leave around the back? The number 10 official informed the investigative team that they did this in order to avoid staff being photographed by the press outside. What a surprise. Again, they knew about this stuff. They knew it was going to cause a problem. And yet we have clear evidence again trying to hide this, trying to cover it up. The quiz approximately finished at 21:30. Most of those in the room and number 10 either left or returned to work after. The quiz then went, with some remaining continued to chat and some to drink alcohol. So on to the next one, 17th of December 2020. Gathering in the Cabinet Office, number 70 Whitehall, held an online Christmas quiz. I think this is the same one. No, this is a different one. So this is another email team asking to, I think, a separate one that says, hi team, having consulted Believe Tracker, we're planning on having a virtual Christmas party on the 17th of December. If anyone has any major objections to that date, please could you let us know. Also, please do flag by cop if you don't if you would like to be part of the Secret Santa. The event was discussed in advance and including the idea of a virtual quiz with senior officials at Cabinet Secretary Office. And by the way, I'm not against Whitehall officials having like a virtual quiz. Fine. That's fine. I think we all did virtual quizzes at some point during 2020. I'm fine with them knowing that. I'm perfectly fine with them doing that. The issue, again, comes where we have clear top-level people involved in number 10, knowing what was going on, knowing that people were going to events, not socially distancing, not following the rules, and drinking in excess lots of alcohol, which we have seen caused a fight in one instance, one person to be sick, and now knowing that, well, they're if you get drunk, guys, leave by the back so that you don't get photographed by the press and you don't have to answer any embarrassing questions about this. It boggles the mind what was going on. Oh yes, Cathlo G. Yes, thank you very much for the super chat there as well. Yes, write to your MPs if not satisfied. Very true. Yes, if you are in the UK, And especially if you have a Conservative MP, write to them. Say, what are you doing? Why are you keeping Johnson? The Sue Gray report lays it out black and white. Get rid of him. So anyway, continue. So they had agreed that it could not go ahead on the understanding that the team's rota system, which had been set up to assist with the social distancing, was observed. This meant that half of the private office team would be in the office today and the other half will be working from home on any other given day. On the 17th of December, the virtual quiz did take place in the outer office of the Cabinet Secretary's room. It began at approximately 17:30, and there were approximately 5 people in that office that day. The Cabinet Secretary was not present for the quiz. Those in the office joined sitting at their desks using large communal video screen and a microphone with speakers in the outer office area. Others joined online, and there was some food and alcohol available, which had been brought that day by a member of the office. The quiz lasted roughly about an hour. Once it finished, the online game of Articulate was then played to those in the office and those at home. The game lasted around half an hour. The event finished at 1900. Once the game of Articulate had finished, there was a lot of formal in chat, and again, a brief period between getting those joining remotely in the group in the office. The virtual participants then logged off. For those who've been working in the office, continued then to chat. At 2021-25, the Cabinet Secretary returned to his office, and again, number 10 remained working there. But before leaving the building at 2041, he then stopped to speak to members of his private office for about 15 minutes. He was then offered to look at again and offered and took a beer. His private office then team remained. His office men remained chatting at their desks and snacks. So again, another gathering for number 10 of leave individuals. So again, on to the preparations for this. On the summary. So 17th December 2020, a leaving do took place for number 10 officials. Number 10 official number 1 and number 2 took place in the Pilliard room. There were speeches, including from the Prime Minister and senior officials, and alcohol. Approximately about 20 people attended. Preparations. On the 8th of December 2020 at 11:59, the third number 10 private official to number 10 official number 3 sent an invitation meeting to number 10 private secretaries, director of communications, head of the press office, and other individuals in the press and private offices of number 10. The meeting was titled PO Meeting and Farewells, and the scheduled for 17th December 1830 in the Pilliard room of number 10, and the farewells were for number 10 officials number 1 and number 2. On the 14th of December, 1730, number officials number 3 sent a further email to the original invitee list, extending the invitation to other officials in number 10, including senior officials, and the events team and the foreign press team. Invitation was entitled Number 10, Official Number 1, Moving On. 17th December 2020, a fourth email arranged for the Pilliard room to be prepared for the event, asking for number 10 facilities management. Would it be possible for the tables in the Pilliard room to be cleared out and left with just one table ahead of private office meeting for farewell? So the event began at approximately 1800, work-related meeting to discuss how the office would run over the Christmas break. And at approximately 1900, formal leaving speeches began for number 10 officials number 1 and number 2, and there were approximately around 20 people in the room from across number 10, but predominantly for the private office staff and members of the staff to join virtually. Approximately 5 bottles of wine were provided for those attending. Prime Minister then attended for around 15 minutes from 1950 to 2005, giving a speech thanking number 10 officials number 1 and number 2 before returning to his office for further meetings. There was also speeches by other officials. Following the speeches, for those who had then joined the virtual event meetings, then left. Several of those in the room that are also left at this point, some remained for a period of at least 45 minutes before heading home or returning to their offices to work. A small number of individuals, at least 3 or 4, remained in the Pilliard room for a while longer and then went to the private office area where they continued to drink alcohol until approximately 1 in the morning. What? What? That's kind of shocking. The number 10 door link entry exit logs shows that between 0043 and 0046, 6 members of staff from the Cabinet Office and some who had again left the separate leaving event out below, the officials from the COVID task force, went into number 10 and joined those remaining in the number 10 staff office who were still gathered. 2 groups then met in the private office briefings before parting ways. Number 10 office of the Cabinet door office logs shows all of them leaving the number 10 Cabinet office between 1 in the morning and 1:28. Oh. Again, this is another senior official leaving. On the 17th of December, leaving place took place for Kate Jolfins, Director General of the COVID Task Force, and an official from Number 10. The event took place in the Cabinet Office in Number 10 Whitehall and attended by at least 20 to 30 officials, including senior officials from Number 10 and the Cabinet Office. Kate Jofis and Number 10 officials were leaving the civil service and were wished to mark the departure with a formal leaving event. In the week before the event, however, there were discussions around the second Parliamentary Secretary, James Brower, about on the basis that the time was limited and that no one was to travel into the office specifically and that it should be socially distanced. So again, there were people who were, again, aware of the rules and tried to at least enforce them, but they were just blanked, essentially. The Cabinet Office COVID Task Force operated largely on a work-from-home basis, with the exception that some key staff and mostly senior civil servants attended the office in Number 70 Whitehall. On a typical day, there were approximately 12 members of staff present. On the 16th of December 2020, an updated invitation was sent out by the Cabinet Office on behalf of Kate Jofins, and an email account to at least 40 members of staff across the Cabinet Office to invite them to an event in the Whitehall Conference Room C, from 18:30 to 20:30 on the 17th of December. The invitation read like this. Kate J, Number 10 office farewell drinks. Again, where and when. Given higher COVID restrictions, please do not travel into London for this if you would otherwise have been in the office. We are leaving the COVID task force. Given the higher COVID restrictions in place, do not travel to London. If you would love to join us for the farewell COVID secure drink, Kate Joffins and Number 10 official. The event began between 1900 hours and 2000 hours on the 17th of December, with more than at least 20 staff attending, including James Bowler, Sir Simon Redley, and of course one other director of the generals of the COVID-19 task force, and of course Kate James. James Bowler gave a leaving speech to thank Kate Joffins and at least Number 10 official for returning to his office shortly afterwards, before leaving the building around 20:45. The intention of this was to follow the social distancing guidelines by observing one-way system. The social distancing and other precautionary measures. This did not happen, as those in the room gathered in small groups, and there was also a mingling between groups. There was food and drink available, including crisp, beer, and Prosecco, that had been largely purposed by individuals attending. Background music was also played through a smartphone. Some people left after the speeches. The event began to wind down between 2200 hours and 2230. After a smaller group of at least 6 to 8 staff left the room, at least one member of the staff went into Number 10 to attend a separate event of that evening, leaving Number 10 officials Number 1 and Number 2 addressed above. So again, we talk about COVID transmission here. Like, if one person's got COVID, the chance of him spreading COVID massively around Number 10 is going off the walls at this point. You know, it's just crazy. It is really crazy when you actually read this in real time with what's going on. So the event then began to wind down after a smaller, going to the other group, before later returning to the event in the Cabinet Office with individual ordered up to 6 pizzas for the group. The event ended between 20:30. Most of those remaining, including Simon Ridley, leaving at this point. Some others, including Kate Joffins, later around at least after midnight to tidy up. A small number of individuals stayed beyond that. They joined with other members of staff from elsewhere in the Cabinet Office and then headed through the linked door to Number 10, apparently with the intention of joining a separate leaving event taking place for Number 10 officials Number 1 and Number 2, which we've already been through. The Number 10 entry and exit logs show that between that time, 6 members of staff entered Number 10 through the linked door. So, we've got to stop the spread of COVID. I know, let's go from one party to another with different people that we've been interacting with to another people. Geez, wonder what the infection rate for people working in Number 10 was. I'd really love to know. I'd really love to know what the infection rate was at this time between Number 10 officials. I wouldn't be I wouldn't be shocked. I would not be shocked I would not be shocked to see that it was through the roof, that people were getting COVID number 10 left, right, and centre. So, 18th of December, gathering number 10 Downing Street ahead of the Christmas break. Summary. On the 18th of December 2020, gathering lasted at least 7 hours. Several hours took place in number 10 press office between 20 and 45 individuals attending over the course of the event, celebrating the end of the year and Christmas. This event included a Secret Santa and an award ceremony. There was alcohol and food. Again, we already heard about the Secret Santa preparations. The investigation was told that members of the press office have for some time, including before the pandemic, brought in wine on Fridays to mark the end of the week. This was known as Wine Time Friday. This is where it all came from. Where bottles of wine were placed on a table in a small room adjacent to the main press office, people could help themselves. On Friday, senior officials would routinely recognize the efforts of the staff by hanging out with some awards and small trophy cup to recognize weekly achievements. Number 10 press office maintained almost full staff attendance. And of course, the office during the pandemic in order to carry out their roles effectively, with some working of rota duty for staff. On the 27th of November 2020, a message was sent by number 10 official on a WhatsApp group consisting of number 10 media special advisors and members of the press office team, saying the message read, "Hey team, do you want to participate in the office Secret Santa?" Followed by a message saying spending limit £10, with a further message adding, "We will do gift exchange with cheese and, quote, lots of wine on the 18th of December. Numbers of members of the staff replied positively. On the 3rd of December 2020, an email invitation was then sent from the press office mailbox to members of the number 10 press office, including which officials and separate advisors, including them, to a wine and cheese evening to be held at 1700 to 2100 on Friday, the 18th of December and on the 7th of December. The messages were sent via the second WhatsApp group, organizing would then be providing the type of cheese and wine for what event. On the 12th of December 2020, a number of messages were then sent on a third WhatsApp group detailing discussing of purchase of a fridge for the office through individual contributions. One member of the group said £5 or so from everyone who wants to contribute would be fab. Thanks, team. Another member of the group replied, done. Looking forward to, quote, a chilled WTF, Wine Time Fridays next week. So not only was Wine Time Fridays a regular thing, but they also then decided to club together to buy a wine fridge. just what is going on? Just what is going on here? So anyway, it continues. While another commented, depending on how full it gets, we can put Friday's cheese in there. On December 18th, a message was then sent from a fourth WhatsApp group to those membership consisting of the press of individuals, including senior civil servants, at 12:09, which follows. Our current plan is 16:30. People put out their cheese and Christmas treats. 1700. Number 10 official kicks off Secret Santa. If you're all right with this, via quote a number 10 official, can we help give out some presents? Then number 10 official then gives out his quiz and gives some people some time to do it before going through the answers. Number 10 official then does weather game. We need to divide the office into two teams, socially distancing along the bank of the desks for this, we think. Then James Slack and James Doyle do a bit of joking highlights and the lowlights of the year's speech. On the 18th of December 2020, at 13:09, the email invitation for the 3rd of December was issued wine and cheese evening with subsequently read end of the year meeting wine and cheese. The event itself. The 18th of December was a Friday, and the weekly press office meeting and Wine Time Friday would normally take place. It was also the last working Friday of 2020 and was the desire to mark the occasion. Some work did take place in the press office and number 10 whilst the event was underway. In regulation to ongoing negotiations or a trade deal ahead of the UK's exit from the... So this was taking place at exactly the same time ongoing negotiations were taking place with Brexit. And it was at exactly the same time, of course, we were getting that quote oven-ready deal. And of course, on the emergence of the Delta COVID variant, raising issues of what COVID restrictions would be necessary over the Christmas period, and announcements being made over the next day. A number of senior members of the press office attended or observed the relevant meetings and discussed a follow-up action. The event was to start at about 1800, but was then later than scheduled. It took place in the same office as the leaving event on the 27th of November, and the area just outside the number 10 press office. A Secret Santa gift exchange took place. There was a quiz. An award ceremony took place. And around 1950, number 10 officials sent a return message to the WhatsApp group stating, prize giving now, guys, return. The investigation was formed that this was the extension of the type of the award ceremony, which might take place on Wine Time Friday. Those present gathered, meeting the table for small areas outside the main press office. The award certificates were then handed out by the staff to Jack Doyle, senior special advisor. There were also at least 30 certificates prepared, although those were not awarded certificates, those were present. Ceremony lasted between 10 to 25 minutes, and of course, between 15 to 45 people were present in the room at the time. Again, love to know what the COVID rate was going on in number 10. At approximately 1945, on the evening, the panic alarm button was accidentally triggered by a member of staff. Oh dear. The custodians on duty responded, as did one of the police officers on number 10 door duty. They observed a large number of people in the area outside the main press office and one individual giving a speech. Inside the press office, to a further 15 to 20 people were at least present. There was some food and alcohol, which had been brought in by staff. Some members of staff drank excessively. The event was crowded and noisy. Some of these events, people were again working elsewhere in the number 10 building. The event heard of significant levels of noise, coming from which what they characterized as a party in the press office. A cleaner who attended the room the next morning noted that there had been red wine spilled on one wall and on a number of boxes of photocopier paper. So there's your red wine spilt all over the walls. What we've been hearing, especially today. So the event lasted for several hours at varying levels of attendance throughout, including because officials left to attend official meetings. Attendance packed during the award ceremony. Number 10 exit logs show a number of people of staff remained in the office until after midnight. So moving on. Next event, 14th of January 2021. Gathering in Downing Street on the departure of two number 10 officials. Summary. On the 14th of January 2021, leaving place took place for two number 10 officials, number 10 officials 1 and 2. In the billiard room of number 10, the Prime Minister attended for a short time, giving a leaving speech. Alcohol was available. Operations. On the 7th of January 2021, Stuart Glasborough, the Prime Minister's Deputy Principal Private Secretary and line manager for the departing individuals, sent an email to inviting staff to a virtual leaving presentation to be held on the 14th of January 2021 between 17:30 and 18:30 to mark the leaving of these two number 10 officials. The event contained only a Microsoft Online team link. No information was initially given to suggest an in-person event. This email was subsequently forwarded to approximately 40 people across number 10 Cabinet Office and HM Treasury, where there was a link provided, the invitation to those attending virtually. So this was meant to be a virtual event. How did what went wrong here? So the event began at around 1800 on the 14th of January 2021 in the billiard room, one of the larger rooms in number 10. Approximately 15 members of staff from the number 10 private office and number 10 policy unit attended in person, up to 30 people joining virtually. So again, there's 15 members of staff going on in that room. The Prime Minister then attended at approximately 1800 for around 10 minutes in between meetings, gave a short speech thanking those for leaving before returning to office. There were further speeches by other members of staff. There are obviously photographs of this event. The following speeches were why some people left. After some people left, others remained in the billiard room, which continued to chat and drink. It is unclear what time the event finished. We were informed at least one of those present were there at least beyond 11 o'clock at night. My God. Look, I know civil servants work hard, but, you know, it's interesting to see sometimes the amount of time some people are really putting in. I hope they're getting decently paid. I hope they are. So the next extent on 16th of April, gathering number 10 Downing Street office for senior official. So this is two senior officials leaving together on the 16th of April. Wonder if this is going to be another joint event. Summary. On the 16th of April, two separate leaving events took place in number 10. One for the Director of Communications, Jack Slack, and the other for number 10 official. Alcohol was available at both events and there were speeches. Senior officials attended. Both groups met in number 10 garden later that evening. The event lasted for several hours. The Prime Minister was not in residence. Preparations. On the 7th of April 2021, an invitation for the leaving event was sent out from the press office mailbox to at least 77 members of staff, including those of the Prime Minister's press office team, and others, inviting them to a team meeting and leaving presentation for James Slack and an office and a private office official scheduled for the 29th of April at 1700 hours. And at 12:35 on the same day, the invitation was forwarded again to the press office mailbox by two distribution lists, legislation and PM Post all. The original event was scheduled for the 29th of April but did not take place. Instead, the invitation was then updated for a Friday on the 16th of April. The James Slack's leaving event only, location now led Pilliard Room /Zoom, then the Garden. So the event. Two leaving events took place on the 16th of April. One event for James Slack and the other event for Mark, the departure of number 10 official. The latter event again was organised on the day. The email was sent out at 16:23 by a number 10 official to the number 10 digital team, number 10 press office, and events and visits and others. There is no scheduled time for the event and the invitation. The email invitation included a Microsoft Office Teams link, included could attend virtually, and there was a call. Number 10 office leaving to presentation. Location was the number 10 digital team office, which was then situated in the basement of number 10. The digital team is part of the number 10 press office, and there was considerable overlap in the attendance of the two events. The first for James Slack began at approximately 1600 with speeches in the press office. He wished to thank his approximate team members, and of course set out the future direction for his team that lasted around an hour. And there were approximately 45 people in total in attendance from both in the office and a small number from the online. Those present in person came from across number 10, including senior officials. Some joined the event virtually. Wine and beer had again been brought by staff and was consumed by some during speeches. Following the speeches, some staff again returned to work, but others continued chatting and drinking. They remained for some time and again were present during while the building was being in lockdown for the evening. Those still present were again asked to leave by the building number 10 custodian, at which point the group then moved on to the garden. And the second event for the number 10 official was to be held in the digital team office based in number 10, began approximately at the same time. The event for the digital communications around 1800 was smaller, but in the scale between 15 and 20 people present, including special advisor and one junior officials. There were leaving speeches for the presentation, wine was available, and music was played laptop on top of a printer. None of those people present drank excessively. There was mingling between these two events, some of which were moving up and down the stairs in between the basement and the press office. The two groups eventually joined together in Downing Street Garden shortly before 21:30. There are again over 20 people present in the garden, number of bottles of wine of alcohol. Number of individuals gathered near the child's swing/slide in the garden, damaging it and leaning on it and playing with it. This was noticed the next morning and reported to number 10 staff. At the time, the custodian staff at number 10 continued to lock down the building. They noted that the groups of individuals had gone into the garden. The group began to break up and then returned to the main building at least 21:39. Number 10 entry logs show the number of people left number 10 at this point. They were encouraged by the custodian to use the rear exit at number 10. Some individuals remained in the building and then carried on drinking alcohol until the early hours. Exit logs indicate that some left after midnight and others between 1:45 to 2:45 in the morning. Two members of staff stayed later, with one leaving at 3 in the morning and the last one leaving at 4:20. My God. Who knew? Who knew number 10 was such a fun place to go and party and stay that long? Oh. So, yeah, so now we get into the conclusions. So, conclusions. Number 1. General findings set out in my update of 31st of January 2022 still stand. Number 2. Whatever the initial intent, Whatever took place at many of these gatherings and the way in which they developed was not in line with the COVID guidance at that time, even allowing for extraordinary pressure officials and advisors were under. The fact that findings of this report illustrate some of the attitudes and behaviours inconsistent with the guidance is also clear, from whom the outcome of the police investigation that a large number of group of individuals, at least 83 who attended these events, breached COVID regulations and therefore COVID guidance. I've already communicated in my updates what I found to be failures of leadership and judgment in Number 10 and the Cabinet Office. The events I have investigated were therefore attended by leaders in the government. Many of those events should have not have been allowed to happen. It is also the case that some of the more junior civil servants believed that the involvement in some of these events was permitted given the attendance of senior leaders. The senior leadership at the centre, both political and official, must bear responsibility for this culture. Well, Boris certainly didn't do that today. I may update. In my update, I made a number of general limited findings. I'm pleased to progress is being made in addressing these issues raised. I commented on the fragmentary and complicated leadership structures in Number 10, and since my update, there have been changes to the organisation and management of Downing Street and the Cabinet Office with the aim to creating clear lines of leadership and accountability, and now those need a chance to actually bed in. 5. I found some staff had witnessed or had been subject to behaviours at work which I felt concerned about, but at times I felt unable to actually raise properly. I was made aware of multiple examples of lack of respect and poor treatment for the security and cleaning staff. This was unacceptable. And that was also brought up again today. That was another big thing. The fact that the security and staff and cleaning staff had been treated poorly. I agree with it. You shouldn't treat the staff like that. It's not necessary, guys. Don't treat the staff like that. I'm reassured to see that steps have been taken since to introduce more easily accessible means by which to raise concerns electronically, in person or online, including directly with the Permanent Secretary. Number 10. I hope this will truly embed a culture that welcomes and creates opportunities for challenge and speaking up at all levels. We'll see. I also made recommendations that steps should be taken to ensure that every government department has made a clear and rigorous policy in place covering the consumption of alcohol in the workplace. Since the guidance, this has been issued to all government departments. Why wasn't there one initially in place to begin with? And to be honest, as we said, the number of times this has come up with, excessive alcohol consumption. We've got a fight happening between two intoxicated individuals. Someone was sick, and we had literally wine spilt on the wall and on printer boxes. It shouldn't have happened in the first place. And very clearly it shouldn't have happened. And we knew senior officials knew what was going on, and they attempted to make steps to cover it up, to make sure it didn't happen. Be careful, guys, about bringing in alcohol. Don't let it be seen. If you are drunk, don't leave by the front, leave by the back, because there's photographers out the front. They might catch you. We don't want that. So Number 7. The matter of which the disciplinary action should now be taking place is outside of the scope of this report and is for others to consider. Nothing is set out in this report, but can be taken as a consulting a disciplinary investigation or findings for the fact appropriate for such purpose. However, I do offer a reflection that while there is no excuse for some of the behaviour set out here, it is important to acknowledge that some of those in the most junior positions attending the gatherings at which their seniors were present or indeed organised. I have no doubt that they will have taken the learning from this experience, and while it is not a matter for me, I do hope that this will be taken into account considering any disciplinary action. So again, Sue Gray here, and bravo to Sue Gray for actually stepping in here to try and protect junior civil servants, because as she was laid out before, some of these juniors thought that what they were doing was perfectly acceptable because, after all, these events had been organized by senior members of staff. They'd been emails sent out by senior members of staff. They were also present at these events. So, yeah, is it any wonder that they followed? Because obviously they're going to follow. You know, if someone senior is doing it, well, the junior goes on and think, well, maybe I can, join in here as well. Of course, they shouldn't have been joining in the first place, but there you go. So, where are we? Okay, so 8. Many will be dismayed by this kind of behavior that took place on this scale at the heart of government, as we all are. The public have a right to expect the very highest standards of behavior from such places, and clearly what happened fell well short of this. It is my firm belief, however, that these events did not reflect the prevailing culture in government and the civil service at the time. Many thousands of people up and down the country worked tirelessly to deliver in unprecedented times. I remain immensely proud of the civil servants and of the work of the service done by the wider public sector during the pandemic. So, of course, here we have some of the photos. So, this is the June the 19th in the Cabinet Room. So, this is the Prime Minister's birthday. Yeah, and you can see all the people. There's the Prime Minister. There he is again. There's Rishi Sunak. Using a can of Coke. At the door, giving the speech. Again, not very socially distanced. And then, yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's very much it now. It just goes on to say about some of the stuff that happened just next. But yeah, that, ladies and gentlemen, is it. That is the Sue Gray report. That is it. That's it. That's your lot, folks. Yeah. This does not look good for Johnson. It really doesn't. And for those Tory MPs who had said in the past, "Oh, we're waiting for the Sue Gray report," well, here it is. Here it is on the side. Here it is in black and white, spelled out for you. What was going on in number 10? The Prime Minister knew what was going on in number 10. He attended some of these events. He was, again, known to be attending. His office and senior officials were inviting him to these events. He knew what was going on. He could have put a stop to it, but he didn't. And again, failures from senior officials. That's it. So this is a colossal failing. Is Boris Johnson to blame for this? Yes, he was at the top. Ultimately, it was his office responsible. He was involved in many of these parties. He might not have been involved in the initial investigation, but he was certainly being invited to them. So for those Tories who were holding out, oh, well, we'll wait for the Sue Gray report. Well, you need to send your letter. Basically, I don't think that's going to happen. But this report is damning. I've said it before. There is some serious anger about Partygate. The idea that, quote, people can move on. No, the anger out there is palpable. It's big. We went through today the the stuff for the Wakefield by-election, the council that had happened, the focus group that literally said, look, the vitriol against Boris Johnson being pointed at him, the angry vitriol being pointed at him is real. And I can tell you now, it's real. It's out there. And Tory MPs who sideline this, who say, oh, it's not real, this is a non-story, you are wrong. Completely wrong. It is out there, still wide and being felt by people. This is not going to just go away. So, yeah, Colin. Phew, we all need a drink after that. Fancy going to number 10. Yeah. Tell you what, if anyone ever opens a bar, name for the bar, number 10 Cabinet Office. Oh, number 10. Yeah. Good idea for a themed bar, although I don't know how well that's going to do, to be honest. A themed bar around number 10. I don't know. It's bizarre, but there you go. Yeah. Of course, I think some people have asked what's going to happen next. I don't know what's going to happen next. Honestly, I would like the 1922 committee to step forward and say, look, we've received the letters, time to get the vote going. I very, very much doubt that will happen. Will they get letters in the next day? Will we be hearing about this from tomorrow? Doubt it. Why? Biggest problem for most of the Tories is that they feel that there is no successor to Johnson, that there is no clear successor, and that they feel that they have to keep with him. There have been a lot of Tories saying today that they know today they have lost the next general election. Without a shadow of a doubt, they know that they've lost. Of course, this doesn't mean that we should give up, of course, on moves to tactical voting, again, to help get more, should we say, Tories out of office. That definitely will be helpful. But as we saw very recently at the local elections we had just had, one of the big phenomenons we saw for the first time ever was we had conservatives who are normally very, very good and motivated for go out and vote, not go out and vote. So that playing into a general election is big, very, very big. But of course, we're going to have to wait certainly to the next general election. So as always, thank you very much again for joining me all this evening. Like I say, we've gone through the Sue Gray report. We've gone through it all. Very interesting, some very funny stuff, some unbelievable stuff, as I'm sure you'll have heard it yourself. But yes, please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button if you are new to the channel on your way out. And yes, the like and share button helps massively. And of course, after this video is finished, if you'd like to leave a comment afterwards, that also helps feed the algorithm gods, as they say. And of course, down below, there is a link to my Patreon page and a one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, well, buy me coffee. And of course, there is the YouTube subscription button where you can join the Pony Club. And of course, there is the YouTube thank you button down below as well. So, as always, thank you very much, everyone, for joining in this evening. It's been absolutely fantastic. Thank you very much for joining. And yeah, we will have to wait to see what is going to be the fate of Boris Johnson. Is it going to be good? We don't know. But needless to say, I think there are going to be a lot more Tories, a lot more willing to start throwing their weight around. And I think a lot of them, we're going to definitely potentially see some challenges maybe start to emerge. Maybe some people will start to put themselves forward a bit more. We've heard rumors there's going to be a cabinet reshuffle. Whether that happens or not, we don't know. Rumors again abound of course, Rishi Sunak being rotated out and Liz Truss being made the Treasury Secretary. You know, heaven help us all if that comes to pass. So as always, thank you very much for watching, and of course, we'll see you all next time.